Hey everyone, welcome to the video. This one we're going over the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte Motor Speedway on Sunday, May 24th at 6 p.m. It's going to be a really long race. We got 600 miles and 400 laps to complete, but I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure you guys are as well. One of the biggest races of the season. But before we continue, as always, if you guys could just leave a like, and if new to the channel, you might as well hit that subscribe button because I'm going to be here all season long trying to help you guys become better NASCAR DFS players. And I do other sports as well whenever they start up. So if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out whenever I post new content. And if you don't follow me over on Twitter, I'm at Pennell16, almost close to 1,000 followers on Twitter. So that would be really awesome if I can get there. I know it doesn't mean anything, but it'd be nice to get more followers. And I try to retweet and tweet out as much important information that I can. And you can just hit me up on Twitter and I'll try to answer any questions you have if I see it in time. And if you just come over on Patreon, it's always much appreciated. I got a ton more people on Patreon over the past week signing up for NASCAR, well over 100 members now, so I really do appreciate the support on there. I put a lot of extra work on all this content, and you get some extra content if you sign up on Patreon, so I do appreciate all the support. So if you do want to support me over on Patreon, you hit that link in the description below, and it'll take you to a page that looks just like this. So if you hit that link in the description below, this page will take you to my Join Patreon page where you get access to my entire NASCAR model, my cheat sheet, my data sheet, which I do preview for you guys, but I do have a ton of extra stuff on my spreadsheet that I post on Patreon, my Discord chat where you can ask me all the questions you want, and I'll answer you at any time of the day, where you pretty much talk in there every single day at all times of the day, just about anything really. My projections, my core plays, my article, my tier rankings, my GVP exposure, so you know exactly where my money's going, and you get my power rankings, which is just a statistical based power ranking system that I developed in the spreadsheet. So if you're interested, you can support me on Patreon, and without further ado, let's get into the actual video. And before we actually begin, I do want to just do a schedule update. So qualifying, we're not going to know qualifying before the day of the actual race. So we're going to know qualifying around 3 p.m. Eastern time. They're doing qualifying at 2 p.m. The race is at 6 p.m. Qualifying give or take around an hour. So we should have qualifying information by 3 p.m., which does make doing content a little difficult because that means I have a 3-hour window to do content. And obviously my first priority is going to be getting out my Patreon content. So the live stream, it's iffy. I'm going to try to do it as long as I get everything done, because obviously you have to do the Patreon members first and all that exclusive content. So if I can get everything done in time, I'd like to do a live stream anywhere from 4 to 4:30 p.m. It's not going to be an hour-long live stream. It's going to have to be a little bit quicker than usual. But we should have the qualifying order, so I'll just try to answer some questions that you guys have, and hopefully it'll still go as smooth. And live streams have been really fun. I've never done a live stream before last week. A little nervous to ever do them, but had a lot of people in there, so I do appreciate everyone that stops in, and apparently you guys like them, so I'm going to keep doing them as long as time permits. This will probably be just the toughest week to do it, just because of how the timing works out with qualifying and the actual race. But live streams should be good to go for the rest of the season because you guys like them. So if you guys like them, I'm going to keep doing them. All right, so anyway, let's preview this race. So this is the Coke 600, the Coca-Cola 600, whatever you want to call it. And there's your outline of Charlotte Motor Speedway and obviously the track, Charlotte Motor Speedway. It's a large oval, intermediate track, just your pretty much cookie cutter 1.5 mile track. It's a pretty narrow track though, and there's a lot of cautions last year. Not like it's Daytona or anything, but the narrow track can lead to more cautions. 1.5 miles in length, if I didn't already say that. And number of laps, there's 400 laps. So this is a long race. 600 miles, and that means there's 300 Dominator points available. So Dominators are the key this week. If you just make your lineup straight place differential and they don't lead any laps, you are not winning money. You have to have Dominators in your lineup. Looking at previous optimal lineups the past few years, they've had at least 2 in every single lineup, sometimes even 3. Just depends on how the Dominators work out that week. But the plan for most of your lineup should be at least have 2 Dominators per lineup, because with 400 laps, yeah, you're going to need about at least 2, maybe 3, just depending. There's probably going to be 1 major Dominator, then there might be another major Dominator, but there should at least be 1 to 2 minor Dominators as well. But that's pretty much for the preview, nothing too spectacular, just really focus on Dominators this week. And with that being said, we can probably get into the driver-by-driver breakdown. And this is going to be a lot harder to do than usual because we don't know the qualifying order, which is literally the most important thing when it comes to NASCAR DFS, is knowing where these guys start. So I figured we'll just do we'll go over their stats, and I can just kind of give my opinion. Their stats at recently at Charlotte, using the past 6 races, which I know is a big sample size, but it's just the one I like to do. And then we can look at momentum and how they perform at 1.5 mile tracks as well. And then hopefully this information that I give you, once you guys know the qualifying order, you can apply that to the qualifying order and make good judgment-based picks. And then if I have time, I'd really like to do the live stream to answer some questions with the qualifying order up on the sheet. So let's just start up top. Kyle Busch, he comes in at 11,500, and with Martin Truex Jr., he's actually been in the optimal lineup the past 3 races here with Truex. And this has really been a Toyota track, as JGR has just performed very well. Kyle Busch is really strong here. Martin Truex is dominant here, and Denny Hamlin's been really good here as well. They actually all 3 made an optimal lineup here recently too. But yeah, Kyle Busch, he's averaging 73.5 DraftKings points per race here. Average finish of 12.3. Had a little bit of trouble one race where he didn't finish that great, so that's going to skew his numbers a little bit. And I will say, there's actually been a lot of there's kind of been a lot of wrecks here recently, so some of these average finishes are going to be a little bit skewed because of that. But he's got an average running position of 9, average driver rating of 112.3, does have a win here, 3 top 5s, 4 top 10s. Obviously, all of his numbers are going to be absolutely elite, averaging 90.3 laps led per race, 52.2 fast laps. One of the races, he led well over 300 laps. He just absolutely dominated. Truex has done the same thing as well. So yeah, Kyle Busch and Martin Truex Jr. are both going to be amazing picks, in my opinion, just depending on where they qualify. I don't really think it matters where they qualify because they're just that good here. But yeah, definitely Kyle Busch. I know he's super expensive, and it's just easy to say he's a good play. But he is a good play. Sometimes he's just overly expensive for the track that they're at. But this is one of those tracks you probably don't want to fade Kyle Busch at just because of how good he is here. And recent track history at 1.5 mile tracks or large oval tracks, and it's actually only 8 races I'm using for this sample size, so I should probably fix that. But he's averaging 62.8 DraftKings points per race, average finish of 6.3, which is best of all drivers. Running position solid, driver rating is amazing. 5 top 5s the past 8 races, 7 top 10s. Nothing bad you can say about Kyle Busch. Also finished second last race. Now he did accidentally wreck Chase Elliott, so people might be a little bit upset to put him in your lineups, especially if you're a Chase Elliott fan, because I know he has a large fan base. But you should be willing to look past that because the numbers here are just great for Kyle Busch. For his numbers so far this season, past 5 races, I believe that's what the data set I'm using. He has 3 top 5s. He has 2 second place finishes. Average finish of 9.6. I mean, Kyle Busch, I know he hasn't won yet, and he hasn't really dominated either. He's averaging 0 laps led per race. But this is one of those tracks that JGR excels at. So it would not surprise me if Kyle Busch comes out strong and even leads over 100 laps, just depending on where he qualifies. Like if he's on the pole, I mean, he could always lead over 300 laps. He's done it before, so we'll see. But Kyle Busch is definitely going to be a favorite heading into this race for high ownership, and I think it's deservedly so just because of how good he has been here. Let me pause this really quick and fix something. Okay, sorry, I had to get my note. I wrote some notes down on my phone for all the guys that wrecked since 2016 at this track, and Kyle Busch did wreck in 2016, which again said it skewed his stats a little bit. And there's been a long list of wrecks here, so some of these guys' average finishes are going to look a little poor compared to where they usually finish. So I just wanted to throw that out there, but I'll try to bring it up as long as I can remember. I do have it right beside me. But anyway, let's go down to Kevin Harvick at 11,200. And Kevin Harvick, he's always been good at large oval tracks, 1.5 mile tracks. I mean, Harvick's pretty much good just about anywhere. Kind of disappointed last race at Darlington number 2. I was very, very high on him. He still finished 3rd. I think he got 61 DraftKings points. But he didn't really dominate like I thought he would. He did get up front for a little bit, but I expected more. So he was a little disappointing. He didn't kill you or anything. But yeah, Harvick, he had a really strong start to the season. If we just look at his momentum so far, he's got an average finish of 4.6, averaging 75.8 DraftKings points per race, average running position of 5.6, drive rating of 118.7. All these numbers are number 1 out of anybody. Does have a win, 3 top 5s, 5 top 10s out of the past 5 races, averaging 65.6 laps led per race. I mean, Kevin Harvick's been an absolute animal. He did crash here, I think in 2018, so his numbers are going to be skewed a little bit, but this is a good track for him. I mean, he's always good at 1.5 mile tracks. Was really good on them last year as well. But average finish of 16.8. Again, that's a little bit skewed. Average running position of 13.4. Just have 2 top 5s the past 6 races here, only averaging 36.7 laps led per race, only 30 fast laps per race. Now, this is mainly suppressed due to the fact that Kyle Busch and Martin Truex Jr. just basically take turns just absolutely dominating this race. So a lot of these high price drivers numbers aren't going to even be close to as good as them, just because it's been the Truex and Busch show, and I can definitely see that happening again. But if you're just wondering why these numbers are just so far behind them, it's just because Truex and Busch have absolutely ran away with these races in recent years. But it's not like these guys are bad at these tracks by any mean. If you look at the track type form here for Kevin Harvick, the past 8 races, he has 2 wins, averaging 55 DraftKings points per race, average running position of 9, which is actually better than Kyle Busch, 106.3 driver rating, averaging the most laps led per race at 37.8, 21.3 fast laps, which is second. So yeah, Kevin Harvick, I think he's a fine play, but I would rather play Kyle Busch and Martin Truex Jr. ahead of him. But if I had to pick who would dominate just in order, it's probably going to be Truex, Busch, and then I think Harvick and Hamlin would come in right beneath those two. So definitely like Kevin Harvick. I think he's going to be a lot lower owned than Kyle Busch and Truex if people are just looking at track history or just watching my video because I like those guys better. So I think Kevin Harvick will come in a little bit lower owned unless he somehow starts on the pole or if he starts like way in the back. But Harvick's fine. I just prefer others to him, but I mean, he's just been dominant. Denny Hamlin, 10,800, another Toyota. Gotta make sure I say that right. But yeah, teammates with Kyle Busch and Martin Truex Jr. Denny Hamlin has been very good at Charlotte, as has JGR as a whole. He has an average finish of 10.5, average running position of 7.7, 4 top 5s here the past 6 races. Numbers are really, really good, averaging 22.8 laps led per race. Again, these numbers are going to be suppressed because Truex and Busch tend to lead all the laps here. So these guys' laps led numbers aren't going to look as great as they should, but I mean, they're still good here. And Denny Hamlin actually did make an optimal lineup here recently as well. If you're looking at the track type form for Hamlin, he's averaging 50 DraftKings points per race at these types of tracks. Does have a win, 3 top 5s, 4 top 10s. Numbers aren't as good as Harvick, Busch, or Truex, but the numbers are still solid nonetheless. If you're looking at current momentum, I'm sorry, I can't talk. He's averaging 40 DraftKings points per race this season, 9.8 average finish, average running position of 14. Does have a win, 2 top 5s, and he's looked really fast the past 2 races, so I don't expect that speed to be going anywhere anytime soon. So I do like Hamlin. He's on the outside looking in if I'm talking about Kyle Busch or Martin Truex Jr., but I think he's right up there with Kevin Harvick as being another potential dominator in like the Tier 2 class. But moving down to Martin Truex Jr. at 10,600, who's looking like he's going to be my favorite play of the week and more than likely my highest owned dominator, just depending on where he qualifies. But I really don't think it's going to matter where he qualifies. I like Martin Truex Jr. a ton, and so should you, because all these numbers here are going to be really, really dark shades of green. So the past 6 races at Charlotte, he is averaging 112.8 DraftKings points per race, which is absolutely insane. An average finish of 3.5. Average running position of 5.3, average drive rating of 127.1, 3 wins, so 50% of the time the past 6 races he's won, 5 top 5s out of the past 6 races, 6 top 15. I mean, the guy's just an absolute stud here, averaging 138.7 laps led, 58.7 fast laps. At these types of tracks, he's also dominant as well. 61.2 DraftKings points per race. Average finish is great. Running position is great. Driver rating is great. 6 top 10s the past 8 races. There is nothing bad you can say about Martin Truex Jr. Also averages 9.4 place differential spots per race, which is pretty good for a guy that's this high price because they tend to qualify kind of high. So yeah, Truex, I mean, this is a track that sets up really, really well for him. I think he's going to be popular. And I also think he's way too cheap. If Truex was near 12K, I'd still have a lot of interest in coming in at 10,600. I think that's a mispricing, and I think there's a lot of guys that are underpriced on this slate. So Truex, he makes it easy to fit in 2 dominators as well. Like if you want to play Kyle Busch and Martin Truex Jr. in the same lineup, it's easily doable, guys. It's not that hard. And even if you want to go with someone like Truex and Elliott, you got a lot of money still left on the table. So I'm loving Truex price, and I expect him to be the highest owned dominator. I mean, obviously it depends where guys qualify. Like if Kyle Busch tends to qualify, if he happens to qualify in the very back, yeah, he'll be higher owned, but just if we just get general starting positions, I mean, I think Truex is going to be the highest owned guy, but I think it's for good reason. I mean, numbers here are absolutely insane, and he's been coming on strong the past few races just this season. I know he has an average finish of 16.4, but again, he wrecked 1 race, but he has an average running position of 9.8, only 1 top 10 so far, but he was 3rd in green flag speed last race, and we know how good he is at night races, and last race was a night race at Darlington number 2. He was 3rd, and during the day race, he was 10th. So, I mean, the guy's just good at night races. I don't know what it is. His team gets the right setup. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to playing some Martin Truex Jr. on Sunday, and I'm sure you guys are as well. All right, so Brett Keselowski, he comes in at 10,300, only averaging 34 DraftKings points per race here, but he did wreck one of the races early. He got into the back of Chase Elliott because I believe it was Jeffrey Earnhardt, if I remember correctly, spilled some oil on the track. Elliott couldn't brake, and Kes just rammed him. It was early on in the race, so they finished horribly, which is going to skew those stats. I mean, he's in most cases, he's going to average more than 34 DraftKings points per race, but he did wreck. That was in 2017. But overall, numbers aren't too bad here. Average running position of 14.4, drive rating of 85.7, does have 2 top 5s. Hasn't led the most laps here. I know he got up front one of the races, but only averaging 13 laps led per race here at the past 6 races. At these types of tracks, he has struggled a bit so far. Average finish of 16.5 the past 8 races, only averaging 31.2 DraftKings points per race. Average running position is not terrible at 13.9, but the drive rating is the lowest out of the 10K and up tier. Doesn't have any wins, 2 top 5s. So I will say his numbers are poor compared to the other guys in this price range, which will probably lead to some people being off of him. But he has shown some speed this season, and Penske's been fast too as well. But if there's one guy to probably be lower on, it might be Brett Keselowski, just depending on where he's going to start. Obviously, if he's starting like 30th, yeah, we're going to like him a lot. But numbers so far have been strong this season, averaging 54 DraftKings points per race, which is actually second best in this entire tier. Average finish of 8, running position of 8.5, 2 top 5s, 5 top 15s, 35 laps led per race. Yeah, he's been pretty good this season. It's just, man, at Charlotte, he's had some struggles, but a lot of that can be due to ramming into the back of Chase Elliott. That's going to hurt his stats a little bit. Would I full fade Kes? Absolutely not. I definitely want some ownership. Just going to depend on where these guys qualify. But he's definitely on the outside looking in if I'm talking about Truex, Hamlin, Harvick, or Busch. Joey Logano, he comes in at 10,000, and he has been a little rough here at Charlotte in recent seasons, only averaging 21.7 DraftKings points per race, averaging position of 16.9, only 1 top 5. So it's been a little rough going for Joey Logano. And I don't believe he has any wrecks, at least since 2016, if I remember correctly. At least on my notes, he didn't have any. I was rewatching some of the past races over the last couple of days just to take some notes down. And I don't know, hopefully I didn't miss anything. But yeah, Logano and Keselowski, I mean, more so Logano. It's just been a little bit of a struggle here for him. But at these types of track the past 8 races, he's been really good at them, averaging 54.2 DraftKings points per race, average finish of 7.9, average running position of 8.8, drive rating checks out, does have a win, 4 top 5s, so 50% of the time he's been in the top 5, averaging 30.4 laps led per race, which is second most. So overall, I think Joey Logano is going to be fine. Maybe he's getting a little bit unlucky at Charlotte, and I would have no problems playing Logano. I think the price at 10,000 is not too bad either. And he's been having a really good season so far. He's averaging nearly 50 DraftKings points per race, average finish of 7.6, does have 2 wins. I mean, 4 top 15s, 3 top 10s, 2 top 5s. Obviously, all those numbers are going to be good. So Logano, he's fine. It just depends where they qualify. Could lead some laps. Definitely has the car to be able to do that. But I know the price kind of just falls in correlation of how much I like these guys, but Logano, Keselowski, kind of on a third tier. I'd say Denny Hamlin, Kevin Harvick are on the second tier. Then the first tier is going to be Kyle Busch and Martin Truex Jr. Going down to Chase Elliott at 9,700. I definitely have quite a bit of interest in Elliott because he's below 10K, and I think that's a mistake. He has looked really good so far this season. I do have average green flag speeds on my spreadsheet now, and he checks in with the best average so far this season. He has been very, very fast. And I don't see why that would change, and he was probably going to win this race at Darlington on Wednesday, they raced on Wednesday, on Wednesday. But, Kyle Busch got into the back of him, turned him, ruined his race, then he flipped him off. But he's been great to start the season so far, and he's been pretty solid at Charlotte. As an average finish of 16, average number of 13.5, which again, those numbers are skewed because he did wreck early one of those races. But he has 2 top 5s past 6 races here, 3 top 10s, averaging 26.3 laps led per race, which is 4th only behind Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch, and Martin Truex Jr. So, and if we just look at the current momentum so far this season, Chase Elliott's been smashing. He's got 2 top 5s, average driver rating of 108.8, average running position of 8.1, nearly 50 DraftKings points per race, second most laps led per race so far, 3rd in fast laps. Chase Elliott's got a fast car, and just depending on where he qualifies, he's going to be a pretty good play. But even if he qualifies 3rd and he's got Truex and Busch in front of him, yeah, it might be a little bit hard for him to get up front. But if he qualifies, 8 and back, and 9,700, that's not a bad play because he could definitely get a top 3, top 5, and get up front, lead laps, potentially win the race. I mean, Hendrick Motorsports has looked so fast so far this season. We actually have all 4 of them in a line here: Chase Elliott, Alex Bowman, Jimmie Johnson, and William Byron, all in this 9K tier. Kind of funny, I just realized that, but yeah, they've been so fast to start this season. I don't think that speed goes away anytime soon. So yeah, Chase Elliott, I like the price a lot. Definitely someone I want some exposure to. Alex Bowman, he comes in 9,400, which seems a little bit too cheap. And you guys were like me, I had quite a bit of Alex Bowman on Wednesday, and he really screwed us at the very end. He was having a strong race the entire time. So and then right before the rain, they all pit. I believe he pit on his air hose, which made him lose I don't know how many spots. I think he went from like 12th to 29th, and I think he crawled back up to, I was around 20. I forget exactly where he finished, but that really screwed us because he didn't get a chance to make up his spots. And I think he finished with, was it 29 DraftKings points? It wasn't pretty. I don't remember exactly what it was, but not a pretty outing for Alex Bowman. But they did lower his price a little bit. Now, his numbers at Charlotte aren't going to look amazing, averaging only 24.5 DraftKings points per race. But I'm throwing all these numbers out the window because Bowman and Chevy has just looked so good recently. I mean, I got to have interest in all these guys, and especially Bowman. I mean, Bowman and Elliott have been like top tier this season. And if you're just looking at recent track type form, the last 8 races for Alex Bowman, he's been right up there with all the elite drivers in this 10K range. I mean, he's averaging 56.9 DraftKings points per race, average finish of 7.8, average running position of 10.5, 102.8 driver rating, 2 wins, which is tied for first with Kevin Harvick, 7 top 15s, 8 top 20s. I mean, I know we need way more than a top 15 and top 20 for Alex Bowman to pay off, depending on where he qualifies, but the guy can get up front lead laps too. He's averaging 28 laps led per race, 18.6 fast laps. Current momentum this season's been amazing. Pretty much right behind Kevin Harvick this season so far, averaging 55.8 DraftKings points per race, average finish of 9.6. I mean, average running position of 6.8, which is only behind Kevin Harvick. Has a win this season, 2 top 5s. I mean, the guy's been great, averaging the 4th most laps led per race so far, 2nd most fast laps. Chevy speed's real. Hendrick Motorsports has been great so far this season. I don't see why that would change. So Alex Bowman at 9,400, I like the price a lot. I mean, he's a cheap potential dominator, and I mean, you could fit in Martin Truex Jr., Chase Elliott, Alex Bowman, all 3 of them in a lineup, and they all have the potential to lead laps. So, I mean, I think all these guys are fine plays, but yeah, I really like that price on Alex Bowman. So, don't mind getting exposure to him, despite his numbers not being as pretty at Charlotte. But I kind of throw those numbers out the window, especially since we don't have practice or anything. I mean, this season so far, I think we should probably rely on that quite a bit. Same with Jimmie Johnson, but Jimmie Johnson's actually been really good at Charlotte in recent years. He's averaging 70 DraftKings points per race, average finish of 6.8, average running position of 6.9. Now, these numbers do go back 6 races, so they're kind of backloaded from quite a few years ago, but he's still in good here just overall. I mean, the past few years, it's not like he's been bad at it or anything. But yeah, numbers are good. 108.8 driver rating, does have a win, 3 top 5s, 5 top 10s, averaging 32.5 laps led per race, average PD of 9, which I believe is actually the best, only behind Corey Lajoie, which, I mean, Corey Lajoie and Quinn Houff, which is only 1 race sample size. But yeah, Jimmie Johnson's been really, really good here. I know he's pretty expensive at 9,200, but he's been good. Just kind of depends where he qualifies. If he qualifies inside the top 5, it's going to be pretty iffy, but if he's anywhere from like 10 and back, or maybe even 8 and back, I mean, he's got top 5 potential, maybe pick up some fast laps. I mean, Chevy's just been so fast so far this season. But if we're looking at recent track type form, it's been a struggle for Jimmie Johnson. He's got an average finish of 17.8, average DK points of 25.3, no wins, 1 top 5, only 3 top 10s. So I think that's probably more of a better picture of what you could expect. Now, I do expect him to finish inside the top 15 just because of how fast Chevy's been so far this season. If you look at his current momentum this season, average finish of 14, and don't forget, he finished like dead last the first Darlington race, so that's going to skew his stats a little bit. Average running position of 14.1, but he does have a top 5, 3 top 10s so far. Doesn't really dominate or anything, although he was looking like he was going to for a while the first Darlington race. But yeah, Chevy speed's real. Hendrick Motorsports speed is real. So I don't mind some Jimmie Johnson. This has been a really good track for him. So I don't mind him. It's just I don't really think he's got the dominator upside that Alex Bowman and Chase Elliott do. William Byron, if I was going to play less of anyone in this, the least of anyone in this salary range, it's probably going to be Byron because this is a real tough price tag to pay for someone that's only averaging 12.4 DraftKings points per race here. Now, he did wreck in 2018, so again, these stats are going to be skewed a little bit. Does have a top 10, so he was good one race. He was bad the other. So, but, oh, man, it's just I don't really see myself having too much William Byron, just depending on where he qualifies. I'm not sure where he's going to qualify. But if you're looking at his stats at these types of track, he's got an average running position of 11.2, average DK points of nearly 40, average finish of 12.3, 4 top 10s, 8 top 20s. So, I mean, the numbers are good here, but I just don't see him getting up front. And this is a tough price tag to pay. So we will see, but I don't know. He just tends to fade late for me. I don't know what it is. This season, he's got an average finish of 18.8. Again, these numbers are going to be skewed a little bit because he wrecked the first Darlington race. Average running position of 14.6. Only 2 top 15 so far this season. I mean, if there's just one guy I'm probably going to pay the least of, qualifying permitting, it's probably going to end up being William Byron. I think Chase Elliott and Alex Bowman are by far the best plays in this tier. Then Jimmie Johnson's kind of right there with him, but doesn't have the same dominator potential. Then William Byron, he's just going to depend on where he qualifies. But I just don't see myself having too much at that price tag of nearly $9,000. He's going to have to start at least 20 and back for me to have a lot of interest. So, I mean, Byron's fine. Chevy speed's real. Only 2 race sample size here. 1 race didn't go his way. 1 race was not bad at all. But we'll see. Going down to Kurt Busch in this 8,700 tier. This is actually a pretty good track for Kurt Busch. Now, if you were like me and had a lot of Kurt Busch on the Wednesday race at Darlington, he screwed us. His car was absolute junk. He was near 30th place at one point. Just we're lucky he finished with positive PD. It was looking like a trash race for Kurt Busch, but it's just crazy how he went from like a 3rd place car to a junk car. But that's just how it goes in NASCAR sometimes, but yeah, it's been a good track for him. Average finish of 12.8, average running position of 10.2, has 4 top 10s here the past 6 races, averaging nearly 35 DraftKings points per race. It's just going to depend on where Kurt Busch qualifies. I mean, these have been good tracks for Kurt Busch. If you're looking at recent track type perform the past 8 races, average finish of 10.3, 4 top 5s, 50% of the time he's been in the top 5. So I don't mind Kurt Busch at this price tag. Does have a win. Current momentum so far this season, he's got an average finish of 10.4, running position of 13.4, does have 2 top 5 so far. I think Kurt Busch is fine. It's a bit of a steep price tag, so it's going to depend on where he qualifies, but I expect him to have a solid race, probably going to be in the top 10. Should contend for a top 5 when it's all said and done. Erik Jones, he comes in at 8,500, and JGR has been very good here. Sorry, I lost my spot for a second. But Erik Jones has kind of been the one that struggled a bit. He's only averaging 22.3 DraftKings points per race. Average finish of 20.8. Average running position of 22, which is pretty poor. Average driver rating of 68.9. I know we liked him a lot at Darlington, but he's really good at Darlington. But Charlotte has not been one of his best tracks so far. Only 1 top 10 in 4 races. Does have 3 top 20s, but again, we're going to need more than a top 20 out of Erik Jones unless he's starting dead last or something happens in qualifying. But if we're looking at track type form, it's not terrible. Averaging position of 14.4, no wins, only 1 top 5. Erik Jones is probably not someone I have too much interest in so far this season. He really hasn't had a good season so far either, besides the 2 Darlington races, which he's amazing at Darlington already. So we'll see how he goes at Charlotte. I just don't see myself having too much interest. It just going to depend where he qualifies, and I hate to keep saying that, but without knowing the qualifying order, it's kind of tough to tell you who I exactly like, but just going off of the data we have, I don't see myself having too much Erik Jones. Clint Bowyer, 8,300, he really proved me wrong last race. I'm glad he wrecked because I didn't really have any Clint Bowyer, and it helped me out that he wrecked at the end. It helped me out a lot, but man, he was 20% owned, and he led a lot of laps. He was first in green flag speed. I think he got the Kevin Harvick setup. Man, he looked really, really good. He was fast. And it might carry over into this race, but Charlotte's not been too good for him. Only averaging average finish of 20, average position of 18.4. No top 10s, only 2 top 15s. It's not been a great track for Clint Bowyer. If you're looking at track type form in the last 8 races, averaging 12.7 DraftKings points per race, average finish of 22.6, running position of nearly 18. 2 top 10s, that's it. It's not been too good for Clint Bowyer. Current momentum this season, though, he's not been having a bad season at all. He does have a top 5. Did wreck the last race, averaging position of 11.7. Depends where he qualifies, guys, but I'm not going to have too much interest in Clint Bowyer, despite how fast he was. But again, I hate to keep saying it, but I don't know where these guys are going to qualify. So he might end up being a good play if he starts around 15 or 20, but if he's in the top 10, probably won't have much of him, if any. But Ryan Blaney, he's a guy I have a lot of interest in here this week because he is way too cheap. Ryan Blaney should probably be closer to 9K than he is than to 8K. This is just a simple mispricing in my opinion. Now, his numbers at Charlotte are not going to look too pretty, but he did wreck in 2018, which are going to skew his numbers quite a bit. Only averaging 16.4 Draftkings points per race, average finish of 12. Average running position of 15.2 is a lot better than his average finish, so getting a little bit unlucky again. He did wreck one of the races. Average rating of 82.6, only one top 10, two top 15s. But if we look at his track type form at these types of tracks, he should be priced a lot higher in my opinion. I mean, he's got an average running position of 9.6, average finish of 14.1, averaging nearly 40 DraftKings points per race, drive rating close to 100, 3 top 10s, 5 top 15s, 16.8 fast laps per race, which is more than Denny Hamlin has in the past 8 races at these types of tracks. So I like Ryan Blaney here, and he's actually been having a fast car so far this season, but he's been getting unlucky as well. So if you look at his current momentum, numbers aren't going to be pretty. Average finish of 20.8, only averaging 20 DraftKings points per race. Running position is not too bad, which is a better indication of where the drivers stand so far this season. But he's been getting unlucky. I mean, he had the second best car at Fontana before having to pit. Got into a little bit of trouble early on in the last race, which kind of just screwed his day from the start. But I think Blaney is just, he should be closer to 9K. So I think just based on price alone, I'm going to have a decent amount of Ryan Blaney depending on where he qualifies. And I mean, the guy's no stranger to getting up front leading laps. So, I mean, I wish we had practiced to know how fast these cars are going to look and how they unload, but I mean, Ryan Blaney 8100, he's just way too cheap. I mean, the guy knows how to get up front lead laps. He's got 2 good teammates in Keselowski, Joey Logano. So I mean, Blaney's just too cheap, so definitely someone to keep your eye on depending on where he qualifies. Tyler Reddick, the rookie, 7900. We're not going to have any data here for the Cup Series. Obviously he's good in Xfinity just in general. I mean, he made it to the Cup Series, but he's been having a really, really good season. If we just want to look at his momentum, he's averaging 40 DraftKings points per race, average finish of 16.4, running position of 15.7, has 3 top 15s, 1 top 10. Now, it was looking really rough for us if we played Tyler Reddick on Wednesday because he was just running in the back for a while. Ended up getting us some positive PD. I think he ended up finishing 11th, and he outscored Stenhouse by just a very slim margin, which I'll take a small victory for because he was my favorite pivot off of Stenhouse in tournaments, so we'll take the little bit of extra points we got, and he was a little bit cheaper. But yeah, Reddick, he's been outdriving his car so far this season. He looks really, really good. It's hard to trust rookies, but man, he's been looking really good this season. So if he can qualify anywhere from, I don't know, hopefully 18 and back, he might be a pretty solid play. Obviously, if he qualifies near 30th like he did the one race, he's going to probably be like a really good play. But we only have one sample size here at these types of track, but he did finish 11th, average running position of 14.3. So Reddick's, this is going to depend on where he qualifies. Going down to Kenseth, he's at 7,700. Now, if you look at his recent track history, it's going to be really good here compared to his price. But also don't forget, he was retired. He was also in a different car. And it's just kind of hard to know what to do with him. He's in Kyle Larson's car now. Obviously, he was with, oops, pressed the wrong thing on my laptop. Sorry, I had to pause. I just accidentally opened a different application up on my laptop. But anyway, we're talking about Matt Kenseth. So his numbers are going to look really strong here. And he used to be in a Joe Gibbs car in that 20 car. So numbers are going to look really strong. As I've been saying, Toyota has been very strong here. But now he's in the Kyle Larson's car. He's had a lot of time off. Now I know he's had 2 races under his belt. First 2 Darlington races, which haven't gone too bad at all for Matt Kenseth. But we're just looking at his track history numbers for the past 5 races. He has an average finish of 8.2. Average running position of 11.5, 2 top 5s, 3 top 10s. It's been a very good track, and it should be because he was in a Joe Gibbs car, and Joe Gibbs has been very good here in recent years. Again, now he's in a Chevy, so we'll see. But if you're looking at his track type 4 in the past 5 races, I mean, I think it's the same data set because that's the only thing I can use. But yeah, if you're looking at current momentum for Matt Kenseth, he has an average finish of 20, average running position of 15.6. He had a really bad race at Darlington too, just got into some trouble, ended up having to go to pit road, but it's going to be interesting just to see where he qualifies. This was a track he knew well, but again, he's in different equipment now. Not that he's in bad equipment with Kyle Larson. Obviously, Kyle Larson was in near top tier equipment, but it mainly just depends on where he's going to qualify if we have any interest. All right, so going down to Aric Almirola, he's actually been really fast this season. If you're just looking at green flag speeds, he's been pretty fast. Now, he comes in at 7,500, which it's interesting. I feel like he should be a little bit more expensive. Track history at Charlotte has not been amazing. Only an average running position of 18, average finish of 17.8, no top 10s, 2 top 15s. And the thing about Almirola, he tends to qualify a little high. Like, he tends to be in that top 10, top 12. And with an average finish of nearly 18, average running position of 18, no top 10s, look, I like the price on him, but unless he qualifies in the 20s and back, I'm probably not going to have too much interest just because he's probably going to fall back from where he starts. I mean, he's been fast so far this season. He's got the potential to top 10, but, track history is not on his side. If we look at his track type form, average running position of 12.1, which is pretty good. Average finish of 15.5. Does have a top 5, 2 top 10s. Momentum so far this season's been pretty good. Average running position of 10.9. Average finish of 11.2. 3 top 10s. The numbers are all good, but I don't know. I like the price. It's just going to depend where he qualifies. If he starts 10th, maybe he can hang on to 10th and just finish there. This price is not the worst thing in the world. But if we're playing Almirola, we're probably going to want him to qualify probably 15th and back, which it's possible. So we're just going to have to see how qualifying goes for Aric Almirola. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. at 7,400, so this is unfortunately a good track for him. And I say unfortunately, it's because I don't like playing Ricky Stenhouse Jr., but we might have to have some interest here at 7,400. So he's got an average finish of 13, average running position of 15.1. Does have a top 5, 5 top 20, so if he can qualify 20 and back, we're pretty much a lock for positive PD outside of a wreck, which they don't call him Ricky Stenhouse Jr. for nothing, but it's been a pretty good track for Stenhouse. So we might have to have some interest if you're looking at track type form. Average running position of 19.7, average finish of 19, which are not pretty numbers, but it's not the worst thing in the world at this price range, but it's not great. But just at Charlotte specifically, he's been pretty good here. Current momentum this season is absolutely awful. He has an average running position of 25.1, average finish of 22. He did get a top 5 this season so far, so it just goes to show, besides that race, how bad it's gone for him. Now, he did finish dead last at the first Arlington race because he crashed on lap 1, which might throw the numbers off a little bit, but even before that, his numbers weren't great. So it's just going to depend where he qualifies, guys. It's been a good track for him, but it's just hard trusting Ricky Stenhouse. Matthew DiBenedetto, 7,200. This seems a bit cheap, but if we're looking at his numbers, they're absolute trash. But I will give him the benefit of the doubt that he has crashed here the past 3 races, so that's going to hurt his numbers obviously a lot. But past 6 races, numbers are not good. Only averaging 9.3 DraftKings points, 32.2 of an average finish, average running position of 31.9, no top 20s, nothing. Average driver rating of 39.3. Numbers are absolutely horrendous here. Now, he's in different equipment now. I can't predict wrecks, but man, it's been a really tough track for MDB. But if we're looking at track type 4 in the last 8 races, it gets a little better, averaging 25.8 DraftKings points per race, average finish of 20, average running position of 21.6, and 2 top 15s. But where it gets better, now he's in good equipment this season. He's in that 21 car, Wood Brothers Racing, Penske affiliate. And he's been having a decent season so far. Average finish of 10.2. That's pretty good. That's the best we've seen since Kurt Busch. And he's all the way up at 8,700, averaging nearly 34 DraftKings points per race. Average running position of 13. Driver rating of 84.9. Has 5 top 15s the past 5 races. Has a top 5, 2 top 10s. The numbers are pretty good. I know this track has been absolutely awful for MDB, but I like the way he's been racing so far this season. He's shown some speed. He's driving solid. Problem is he's been qualifying pretty high recently, so we're going to probably need him to qualify. I don't know. I like the price, but it just going to depends where he qualifies. If he's inside the top 8, no thank you. But if we have a little bit of room for PD upside, might have some interest. But man, he has struggled here. He just keeps on getting in wrecks, but we'll see. He's an interesting case at this price tag, but we're going to have to see where he qualifies. Austin Dillon, he comes in at 7,000. He actually won this race a couple of years ago. It was due to fuel mileage. I believe it was Kyle Busch and Martin Truex Jr. that finished second and third, as usual. But Dillon actually won the race. But outside of that, it's not been too good. And it's kind of sad when you've had a win here the past 6 races, and then your average finish is still 21.5. Average running position of 18.5, 74.5 average driver rating. Did get into some trouble in one of the races early on, which is going to skew his stats a little bit, but it's still not been the best track in the world for Austin Dillon. If you're looking at track type form, average running position of 17, which isn't terrible when you're only 7K. Not great either. We're probably going to need him to qualify 25th and back to have some interest, but it's not a terrible price tag for him. 3 top 15s the past 8 races at these types of tracks. If you're looking at current momentum this season, average ranking position of 19.6, has a top 5, has 1 top 10, 2 top 15s. Nothing amazing. He's going to have to qualify further in the back for us to have interest, but he's not the worst driver in the world. Ross Chastain, he's insanely overpriced. He is not in that 6 car like he was earlier in the season driving for Ryan Newman. He's in the 77 car, which I believe we've seen Reed Sorensen in quite a few times. And if you know anything about Reed Sorensen, that didn't end too well. So I really don't know why Ross Chastain's in nearly 7,000. He's higher priced than Chris Buescher, Christopher Bell, Ryan Newman, Cole Custer, and that just, even some of these other guys, it should just not be the case. He is insanely overpriced. If you're looking at recent track history, he's got an average finish of 30. I mean, these numbers just don't make sense to me. Numbers make sense because that's what happened. The price doesn't make sense. Momentum this season, he's got an average running position of 18.1, but again, he was in different equipment. This is a lot worse equipment now. So, Chastain, I mean, he's just way overpriced. Chris Buescher, he comes in at 6,700. Numbers at Charlotte aren't terrible. Average finish of 21. Averaging 25 DraftKings points per race. Does have a top 10, 3 top 20s. And it's not too bad. In the track type form, his numbers are actually pretty solid. Averaging 40 DraftKings points per race. Average finish of 14. Average running position of 17.5. 8 top 20s the past 8 races. So if he starts 20th and back, he's pretty much been a lock for positive PD upside. Averaging 9.4 place differential spots per race, which I believe is best. Or I think that's tied with Martin Truex Jr. and only behind... No, yeah, he's tied with Martin Truex Jr. for being the best in that category. So, yeah, Chris Buescher, pretty good track type form. If you're looking at momentum so far this season, now he did wreck the one race, or not wreck, but he got into some trouble, got back onto the track. But averaging position so far this season is 22. So it hasn't been a great season for him. I've expected more. He does have 3 top 20s though the past 5 races, but I think he can bounce back. I think he can. He didn't run that well at Darlington, which he usually does, which was pretty disappointing, but 6,700 is not a bad price tag. Definitely a lot better than 8,100 like it was last week. That price was just insanely too high. So I went underweight on Chris Buescher last week on Sunday. That price was insane. But 6,700, as long as we get a decent qualifying spot, I think we can have some interest in Chris Buescher. Christopher Bell, he's a rookie, so you're going to get a mixed bag with him. Obviously, we have no data here for the Cup Series on Christopher Bell, but it's been a tough season for him. At this types of track, we only have 1 race for sample size, but he finished 38th, -6 DraftKings points. It's 1 race, so I can't really use this. But if we're looking at current momentum so far this season, is an average finish of 26, which is pretty awful. Average running position of 23.8. Not that great either, only averaging 15.3 DraftKings points per race. Had a really good race last time at Darlington on Wednesday. He did finish 11th, and I had a lot of Christopher Bell, so that was really, really nice. But to expect that again, I think would be silly. I mean, he's probably going to finish 20th and back, to be honest, unless he happens to run well. But we'll see. I mean, Toyotas have been strong here, so, I mean, we'll see. I know he's not in the same kind of equipment that Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex Jr., Kyle Busch are in, but we'll see. He's got that working in his favor, but it's just hard to trust Christopher Bell with how up and down he's been so far this season, and it's been more down than up. Ryan Newman, 6,500. He just seems a bit too cheap. I don't know why he's stuck in the 6,500 range. I think it's insane that he's cheaper than Ross Chastain. I will say that. But yeah, 6,500 is not a bad price tag. We'll have to see where he qualifies. But if he's in a decent qualifying spot, I think Newman's pretty good source of salary relief because he's got an average finish of 19, which doesn't sound great, but for this price range, it's not too bad. Has a top 5, 2 top 10s, 4 top 20s. I mean, it's not like he's terrible here. I don't think his price is really justified to be this low. If you're looking at recent track type form, he's got an average finish of 16.7, 2 top 10s, 6 top 20s. Momentum so far this season, which isn't a big sample size. I believe it's only 2 races because I exclude the Daytona. But average finish of 14.5, running position of 14.9, drive rating of 80, 1 top 15, 2 top 20. So I think Ryan Newman's fine. Just going to depends where he qualifies. If he's inside the top 10, might have to pass there. But anything outside of that, maybe if he starts 15th and back, 6,500 is not a bad price tag. So do have some interest in Ryan Newman. Cole Custer, ups and down with rookies. I mean, it's just hard to project these guys. I tend to try to not play them, but some of them had really solid seasons, and all these rookies are a lot better than usual. I mean, you got Tyler Reddick, Cole Custer, Christopher Bell. It's a pretty solid class. You also have Brendan Poole, which is really not on their level, and you also have Nemechek. So the rookies are pretty strong, but Cole Custer, he's got that Stewart Haas equipment. I don't expect too much. I mean, we have a 1-race sample size at these types of track. He did finish 18th, which is not too bad. Current momentum so far this season, he's got an average finish of 19.8, running position of 21.2. Does have a top 10. These numbers aren't terrible, but it's just hard to trust the rookies. Depends where he qualifies. If he's 20th been back, yeah, he'll be interesting. But outside of that, I don't know. We'll see, though. It just depends where he qualifies. Hunter Nemechek, I think they need to price him down a little bit. I know he just went absolutely nuts at the first Darlington race where he scored over 60 DraftKings points, but I think that's going to make him overpriced for the next couple weeks at least, unless he just happens to have another terrible race, which, he wrecked early twice, so it's not like he had a terrible race, he just wrecked, which, but looking at track type 4 in the past 2 races at these types of tracks, he does have an average finish of 23, averaging 24.8 DraftKings points per race. I mean, I don't think he should be this expensive. He should probably be in that 5K range, but if he qualifies near the back, he'll be interesting, but I wish he was a little bit cheaper. Daniel Suarez, if we look at his numbers, these numbers are going to be skewed because he was in Stewart-Haas equipment. He was where Cole Custer was, and his numbers were pretty good when he was in that equipment. He's got an average finish of 12.5. I mean, he was pretty good, but now the problem is he's in the 96 car, and he's basically driving an upgraded version of the lawnmower in my barn at this point. So, what does that mean? It means we should probably look at the current momentum so far this season, which I think paints a way better picture, as he has an average running position of 28.2, average finish of 26.2. He has a slow car. If he can qualify 30th and back, I'll have interest, but if he's anything above that, it's going to be really iffy on if he's playable, especially at 6,100. Ryan Preece, he comes in at 6K. It's not been a good season at all for Ryan Preece. Average finish of 28.8, average running position of 24.2, one top 20, and that was for the Darlington race when he ended up getting the pole the next race. But outside of that, it's not been a good season for Ryan Preece. I believe we have a 1-race sample size at Charlotte. He finished 31st, got 6 DraftKings points. I don't know. It just depends where he qualifies, guys. I hate to keep saying that, but if he's going to qualify in the 20s, it's going to be a pass. If he can qualify near 30th, maybe we'll sprinkle him in, but we'll see. Now, Bubba Wallace, 5,900. He had a really, really, really good race at Darlington number 2. He had over 30 DraftKings points. It was pretty good. And at Charlotte, not been a bad track for him, averaging 30 DraftKings points per race here, average finish of 20.5, running position of 23.2, does have a top 20, averaging 6 PD spots per race here. Now, if you're looking at the track type form, average finish of 26.8, not that great for Bubba Wallace, but he's having a really good season so far within his price range. He's got an average finish of 17.8, averaging 30 DraftKings points per race, has a top 10, 3 top 20s. I don't mind Bubba. If he has a decent qualifying spot, I think we should have some interest. I think him and Ty Dillon are probably our safer bets in this price range just because they're capable of getting in the top 20. Everyone else is really, really iffy on that category. McDowell can sometimes crack the top 20, but I think Ty Dillon and Bubba Wallace have our best chance in this 5K tier. And speaking of Ty Dillon, he's fine, but he's not as good as Bubba Wallace here. 4-race sample size, he's got an average finish of 25.3. Did get into some trouble with the one race, so that can skew his stats a little bit. But he does not even have a top 20 in 4 races here. So unless he qualifies in the 30s, we're probably not going to expect too much PD upside. But thing is, he's much better than guys like BJ McLeod, Timmy Hill, and Brendan Poole's actually not been terrible this season, but Ty Dillon and Bubba Wallace are obviously the 2 best plays in this tier, just depending on how qualifying goes. Like if Ty Dillon qualifies 20th somehow, absolutely not. But if he's like around 30, yeah, he'll be an okay play. He should be able to move up a couple of spots. And I just like to play Ty Dillon. I feel like I can trust him starting back there. Track type form, he's got an average finish of 22.9, which is better than Bubba Wallace. Looking at the past 8 races, momentum this season, kind of right there with Bubba, averaging nearly the same points and the exact same average finish with a slightly better average running position. And Ty Dillon actually has 4 top 10s the past, I'm sorry, not top 10s, 4 top 20s the past 5 races so far this season. So Ty Dillon's been looking pretty strong. I don't mind him at 5,700. He's going to let us fit in some dominators. So I think Bubba Wallace and Ty Dillon will probably be 2 of the more popular guys in this price tier to let us fit in our studs. McDowell, so far this season, he's got an average finish of 22.8, running position of 25.8. Does have 2 top 20s, which is not too bad. If you're looking at the track type form, average finish of 23.4, running position of 24.2. Again, these numbers aren't going to be great, but you don't expect too much out of these guys in this price range. So far at Charlotte, 6 races, average finish of 23.7. Does have 3 top, I'm sorry, not Corey, that's Corey Lajoie. Has no top 20s. So I don't expect too much out of Michael McDowell, but if he qualifies near 30th, yeah, we could probably sprinkle him in our lineups. But yeah, it's not going to be too pretty. But Corey Lajoie has actually had a decent showing at Charlotte the past 4 races. So he's averaging 31 DraftKings points per race, has the best average PD of 11 so far, average finish of 24.5, running position of 28.1. Sorry, I lost my spot for a second. As a one top 20, I'm sorry, I lost my spot for a second though. But yeah, it's been pretty okay for Corey LaJoie. I mean, he's averaging 30 DraftKings points per race. Track type form, average running position of 28.9, average finish of 26.1, 22.4 average DraftKings points per race, which is actually the best of this 5K tier. Look, you're not expecting much out of Corey LaJoie. He actually paid off for us very, very well at that Darlington race on Wednesday. Does have 2 top 20 so far this season. I'm sorry, he has 1 top 20 so far this season. That's Michael McDowell that has 2. But yeah, LaJoie's fine. If he qualifies around 30th something, you could sprinkle him in your lineups. Just don't expect too much out of him. But Lajoie, McDowell, Dillon, Bubba Wallace are obviously the best plays in this tier. And pretty much after Corey LaJoie, I don't really have too much interest in anybody. Poole has an average running position sub 30 so far this season, which isn't terrible. So if he qualifies like 35th and back, he's playable. But just give me LaJoie for 100 more. Give me McDowell, Ty Dillon, Bubba Wallace. And after that, I don't really want to talk about anyone else because all these guys are just absolute trash. So that's pretty much going to be it for this video, guys. Sorry I wasn't able to give like picks, but it's just more of a preview video because what else can we talk about when we don't know the qualifying order? So hope this video was helpful. If it was, remember to leave a like. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Really helps me out. Really appreciate it. Thanks for getting me over 4,000 subs. That's absolutely awesome. 5,000's next, so I'm looking forward to that. If you want to support me on Patreon, it's much appreciated. And that's pretty much going to be it. Follow me on Twitter, and I'll see you in the next video. Hopefully we can do a live stream on Sunday.